Naji Attiyah. I am working in University of Kufa, Civil Engineering Department. My field is structural engineering. I got PhD from University of Baghdad at 2000. My first interest is in structural design of modern building, but in the same time, I also have a great interest in heritage because I'm living in very important heritage city named Najaf. I started this interest after 2003, where the political regime changed, and then Iraqi started to think in their future. One of the options for best futures is to enhance the awareness of heritage and how to use the heritage in many things to improve the people's life. My city, there is a very important part of it named the old city of Najaf. It is a historic part. In the center of this historic part is the shrine of Imam Ali, alayhi salam, who is one of the caliphs after the Prophet Muhammad also, and he is his cousin, and also he is the husband of his daughter, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. This important building, I can say it has shaped the city around the shrine for hundreds of years. So a lot of heritage practices, tangible, intangible, practiced around this shrine, and also millions of visitors coming to the city every year with also a lot of traditional thinking and traditional practices. So it is really valuable for the Islamic world and also for the people who are resident in this city. This interest led me to collect a lot of data about the city. In the beginning, because I'm an engineer, my first interest is with the building, with the tangible things, with the how to conserve the building, how to make this building, which is 400 years old, to stay for another 400 years, and also the need for extension of the building. This is also one of the important questions raised after 2003. Because of airport was established in our city after 2003, and the people who are suffering were suffering in the past to come to the city, now coming very easy via this airport and also other transportation ways. So those two things or two issues really it needs a lot of research, a lot of writing, which is the conservation of the old heritage buildings inside this old city, the shrine and other buildings like libraries, schools, etc. And also the extension of the shrine itself, which maybe need a demolition for some or certain building around it, which is also really valuable. There is a project named Nahrein Network. It is in University College of London, started to increase awareness of Iraqi people for their heritage. And there are also two things in this project: giving grants for people who are doing research about the heritage in Iraq, and also at the same time give opportunity to professors or to those who interested in Iraqi heritage to visit the United Kingdom and have a networking and relationship with other research, other interested people from this country and all over the world to start together to write and collecting data and writing research about the Iraqi heritage. I visited University College of London at February and March from 2020, and during this visit, I met the researcher, my co-author, Professor Caroline Sanders, and then she attended my first presentation during this visit about Najaf, and she liked the ideas I talked about at that event, and then we think that it is good if we share our knowledge and our data collected to write a chapter together in a book which is named Sustainable Heritage.
So I am Dr. Caroline Sands. My background is archaeology, and I did a PhD at UCL looking at cultural heritage in conflict, post-war redevelopment. And these days I work in Iraq, and I also lecture and teach at the Institute of Sustainable Heritage. So yes, I met Dr. Ali when he came here in 2020 to do his fellowship, and really liked his material. So, and I was approached by the Professor Kalalopi Fuseki, who's the editor of the Routledge Handbook on Sustainable Heritage, if I would be interested in producing a paper. So I discussed this with Dr. Ali, and we decided to write the paper on Najaf together for this publication.
I said that my interest started with tangible things in heritage because of my specialty in engineering. But later, I got an opportunity to be trained in UNESCO Office of Iraq about the Convention of UNESCO of 2003, which is enhancement, the intangible heritage awareness. And in this short course for 1 week, because I am from Najaf, I have to do an example related to how to enhance those handicrafts, old handicrafts, which is manufactured in the old city, and it is related also to those traditions and beliefs of those visitors and also of those people who live in this part of the city. For this, my mind is changed from that moment, because the value of the heritage, because as an engineer, just thinking of how to make the building as it is, but not thinking about the people who are visiting this building, or the people who are living beside the building, for their life, for example, their ordinary life, and also their beliefs, their cultural identity, and etc. Those things lead me to collecting another data, which is not formal for me. I'm not familiar, for example, with something like handicrafts or something like types of foods in this old city, or type of clothing or dressing, and etc. So I try to think in how those people who are interested in the tangible heritage should keep those things which are surrounding the shrine as it is, because there are integrity between the tangible and intangible. For this, my proposal to visit University College of London is to collect data of the experience in this country about this type of relationship between tangible and intangible. I know in tangible heritage, a lot of things done in United Kingdom, but what about intangible heritage? What about those things, the traditions of the communities in this country? For this, I attracted the interest of Caroline, because also she's an archaeologist, and maybe also she's interested in the tangible things related to the monuments and the heritage building. So we tried together to search about those data, which is not available, for example, in books or in papers, because it is related to the nowadays people, to the ordinary people. For this, I collect some data from my students and my friends, and also those who are visiting the city, about what are the main things, intangible things they are interested to, and those things should be kept in this part of the old city, or if there is an alternative, it can be maybe done far away from the shrine and far away from the old city.
Because Dr. Ali had such rich material, what I really did was put it into context. So I did sort of wider research to give it a sort of better background, and put it into a wider context of Middle Eastern materials generally. So
when I started visiting to United Kingdom and start to know my colleague, Dr. Caroline Sands, I have some ideas and some data, and we based our chapter on this data. For example, the relationship between different communities who are dealing with the old city of Najaf, like the visitors and the students. There are, I didn't mention that one of the major practices is that named Al-Hawza Al-Ilmiya, which is religious studies inside the city. And maybe famous Ayatollah, famous cleric people are living and graduated from this old part of the city. So there is a lot of traditions for this community. There is a certain type of dressing and also certain way of teaching and learning and so on. And all this done also inside this small part, the old part of the city, inside the schools and libraries. For this, Dr. Caroline Sanders also had some information about the Islamic architecture, for example, and also the Islamic heritage. And she tried to use those collected data by me. And for this, I think maybe several months, Caroline, we take about the month of preparing the first draft of manuscript. The main results of our research in the chapter 15 in the book of sustainable heritage was different things. Because the objective is how to increase awareness of local people for the heritage of Najaf. This is the main objective. Sometimes those people, because of their needs, for example, needs for new hotels, for example, needs for new transportations ways inside this old part of city, maybe the level of awareness be affected of those needs. For this, we tried in this chapter to link tangible and intangible heritage that increase the awareness that please keep those places for your traditions, for your cultural identity, because if they removed, maybe a huge part of your traditions will be affected. Also will be maybe forgotten for the coming generation. For this, we recommend that there should be a study which is like inventory, because the UNESCO Convention of 2003 is based on how to make what they said community inventorying, because any maybe expert cannot know what are the needs or what are the signs of traditions or what are things to be kept to keep the cultural identity. So we need a very large inventory, maybe done by students of University of Kufa, for example, or maybe students of schools inside this old city, a lot of schools. Those students should be trained and then make interview with people living inside the city and also with other people who are studying in Al-Hawza Al-Ilmiya in the religious study, and also who are visiting as pilgrims to the shrine, and then try to, let me say, to search those traditions and the practices, and which type of practice needs the place, the shrine, for example, or some schools, or libraries, or houses even, or allays between those buildings, because those practices are related to the place, and the spirit of place is important to be kept for the cultural identity of those people. And we took some example to encourage doing this study. Those example is from the inside this old city. For example, like make hardcover for books. There is a very traditional way inside the city, which is named in Arabic Mujallid al-Kutub, that one person has maybe a small shop with small instruments and old instruments, and make a hardcover for manuscripts or for old books and so on. A lot of people are working in this, and those people, their work is dependent on the students and libraries, because this is a need always continuous. For example, this is one example. Also, the visitor, when come to the city, visiting the city, the visitor should buy something, because there is a part of holiness for those things, even if it is food. One of the food is sweet. It is only manufactured in Najaf, named in Arabic dahin. This is sweet, for example, are manufactured inside the city, and any visitor should buy a sample of this for friends and family and so on when he leave the city. And this should be also inside the old part near the shrine, and many examples also. I can say it and explain it, because how there is interaction between those communities and those people, and this is part of the economy, which is the basis of the continuous life of the people who are living in the city, working in the city, and also visiting the city.
The other thing we sort of looked at too is the sort of sustainability, a sort of sustainable approach to it, and so we did look at that as well, because obviously Najaf receives huge numbers of pilgrims, and this puts quite a strain on the fabric, and so that was something else we also looked at was quite briefly, admittedly, was the sustainability of the whole of the old city and how this could be better looked at or protected.
I think that the issues related to heritage, it is related to the human being from any identity, from any country or any community. For this, sharing ideas and sharing minds with others is really very important, to have another view for this heritage. Because sometimes maybe the passion related to the heritage, maybe someone like me who are living in the city for maybe a long time, that maybe the passion didn't make me see something related to the heritage, because maybe sometimes I'm thinking in a biased way and see some side of view and didn't see the other side. For this, sharing the ideas with the professor like Caroline, really very beneficial for me to look and have a more global view about the issue I'm thinking. I can say maybe every day, maybe every moment, because I'm living in the city, so I need this another eye from outside to help me to see some facts I can't see.
From my side of it, it was very interesting to work with Dr. Ali, because he lives there and he understands the material very well, and he has a much greater insight into it than I could ever have. So it was a very good combination to have, I think, to have my wider view and Ali's much greater local information, and to be able to combine that. I think this is a book chapter that went into an edited volume. So the difference between that and for example, with a journal is the journal is much more your own work. You will submit that to the journal, and the editor will decide on it, and probably get it peer reviewed and so forth. Whereas when you're submitting to an edited book, then the editors have control of all of that, and there's a certain different timeframes on it, and they will request certain things to make sure it all fits with the rest of the book, and to make sure that it's all, it all ties in. So you have to make sure that your chapter is fitting in with the general theme of the book. Whereas if you're sending an article into a journal, that's slightly different, because you just have to fit with the sort of wider remit of the journal itself, rather than specific theme of a book. And I think there's probably the thing about this book is it took quite a long time, but I think the editors had to do a lot of chasing of people. So that's the other thing, is that often these things can take years because of the process can be very slow. Whereas I think journals can be quicker, not always, but they can be quicker. It depends on the journal, I think. So if you wanted to get something out quicker, it would be better to go to a journal, I think, than a book chapter. But the situation is more or less the same. You have to produce a high quality article that will pass peer review. If you want to cooperate with some co-author with someone, then it's really important that you find someone whose research matches, and you have good discussions before you start writing to make sure that you're on the same page, literally. And I think, because that's, I think, where Ali and I worked very well, because we were both very interested in the subject, and we were we had a similar outlook on things. So that's very important, I think, to make sure that and to have good discussions with, and also to break down who's going to do what. So it worked quite well with Dr. Ali, because he did the Najaf, specifically the Najaf stuff, and I did the wider stuff. And then we put it together. So I think that's the other thing, is to make sure you know who's doing what, and to have a sort of some deadlines as well. Otherwise it can go on forever. So that's the main thing, is to make sure you're both in agreement about what you want to do, who's doing what, and when you're going to do it by. I think that would be my main advice.
Also, I can add some advice, because I think the key thing to make the research effective in any field is the multidisciplinary teamwork. For example, our research, me and Caroline, because I'm engineer and Caroline is archaeologist, and I'm living in Najaf, Caroline in United Kingdom. So many differences between us make us maybe integral with each other. For example, if we want to continue publishing in this research, we should bring, for example, sociologists, and also we bring someone in history, and so on, or economy. Economy is very important in those topics. So this teamwork always make different ideas from different point of views, got together, and then reach the best results and best recommendations for the objective of the research. I said this because I know maybe some Iraqi researchers think in a way like a monopoly in science, keeping some ideas for the person to be amazing between colleagues and so on. This didn't work in the research field. You should cooperate with others from your field, from other fields. It is important because, as I said before, you have to see what is the other point of view, or viewing the thing from other side.
The other thing I think I would add is, it wasn't so much an issue here because Dr. Ali has very good English, but I think if people are, it's really useful to have someone whose English is very good, because if you're publishing in an English language publication, then your English has to be to a certain standard. So I think it's also, it would be very useful to have someone on the team whose English is sort of publication standard, to make sure it's all written well and edited well.
Yeah, this is another thing very important, in fact, because it did not depend on the level of English of any person, but how to write in an English mind. Because even an Arabic person with good English, I am writing also in Arabic mind. So this is also sharing, for example, this or co-authorship of this chapter between me and Caroline. I really depending maybe 100% on Caroline in this, because I gave the ideas and the data to Caroline, and then I want her to write the statements and everything in English mind, because this is very important.
The thing to remember is copyright, which in Iraq is not so much an issue, but in English, in most European international journals, copyright is, so whatever photographs or images you use, you must make sure either they're your own images or they've come off Wiki Commons where they've got no copyright issues. Not to be taking material from other people's papers without getting the copyright for them. So that's the other main thing to remember, I think.
Yes, we have only one photo, and we suffered a lot about the copyright of this photo. It's a photo of the city, of the old part of the city, historical photo. Yeah, but a lot of photos in the net, but we don't know about the copyright of those photos.